Yes.
Welcome to this interview, and we're going to have a little chat together. And I'd like you, if you could, to introduce yourself to our new public here in Barcelona after your marvelous talk that you gave for over 8 hours. So if you'd like to give a little introduction.
Well, I'm a person that's doing physics. I've wrote a unified view of the physics of our universe, and it has application to consciousness and technology. And I'm bringing it to the world. I'm hoping to help, the best I can to bring society to the next level.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you consider is your profession in this scientific field? How would you define yourself?
Well, I do a lot of physics, and so some people call me a physicist. I like to think of myself as a mystic, because most of the physics I write is actually knowledge that I've known since I was a kid, and it just takes a long time to study physics and to understand where the physics that are present are at, and then to add on to it.
Yeah.
So it's taken some 25 years of studies of physics, and but at the end of the day, I've had many mystical experiences from very early on, and these experiences is what actually guides my knowledge base, my understanding of the universe. And then from these experiences, from these insights, I look at the math and the physics on how to express them and see if it all works out.
Would you like to give us an example of one of your mystical experiences from very early childhood?
I've had multiple, but I guess some may think of my experiences when I started to think about dimensions, and when I was in that bus, getting out of the bus and seeing the bus as a dot, and going further and seeing the Earth as a dot, and the solar system as a dot, and the galaxy as a dot. These type of experiences where you get a new perspective on a problem, and then seeing the cells as a dot, and the atoms as a dot, and then subatomic particles as dots, and then realizing that the only thing the universe does is dots, points, and puts them together and makes everything we see.
So you're joining up the dots for all of us now.
Yes, I'm trying to, yeah.
So that means that if you had those kind of experiences when you were a very young child, how did you fit in with other children and school and the system in general?
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, my childhood was not very happy. I didn't fit in the school system. I didn't really fit into any organization or anything like that. I didn't do so well. Many of the school systems I was going to were Christian Catholic school systems, and I didn't agree with a lot of the things that are being taught, and so it was very difficult. It was difficult for me, and it was difficult for my parents. I was actually a pretty lonely child.
So that means that you spent a lot of time watching, observing, listening, so that was really your real school.
Yes.
Rather than just absorbing what the teachers were putting out to you.
Exactly. I spent a lot of time thinking and looking around at nature, looking at flowers, snowflakes. I mean, I lived in Canada, we had a lot of snowflakes. And, all sorts of internal worlds were developing inside of me, all sorts of understanding and discoveries of reality that can be done from the inside. People say I had an insight. It's because it came from the inside, and I think that in many cases is lost in the educational system. Children are taught to remove that function from their life as if it was invalid. Only what is valid is what is being taught, and if you have an internal or an insight on something that doesn't agree with what is being taught, then it's invalid and devalidated. And I think that's probably one of the biggest fallacy in our society, because all the things that are taught in these schools came from people that had insights, and actually that is how the universe evolves, is from insights, and certainly our society, and that is not so understood anymore, and that's why there's not so many Einsteins, Galileo, Copernicus, and the rest of them as the fundamental mechanics of how new knowledge comes as being disturbed by the educational system, the current approach to education.
So we can understand now why the people who have these insights are considered to be out of their mind.
Yes.
Because they can literally get out of their mind. So when you're out of your mind, you're in spirit. So you are inspired. So we are
nice.
Cutting people off from their own inspiration, their connection to that source. Now, what you spoke about in the talk, at the beginning, you said, what joins us all together is all that space out there, which the scientists prefer to ignore as we can't talk about space because they can't explain it. But you did it so beautifully in your conference, and you connected us all, and you made us understand that space is not what they want us to believe it really is. It goes beyond. Can you maybe give us a little touch there on space and the vacuum, and help people to understand what your message is on that level?
Yeah,
full of it.
I just want to make clear in your statement that the scientific community is not on purpose trying to avoid the vacuum. They just they don't realize what it means, what they found almost 100 years ago mean, and what they found almost 100 years ago is that the vacuum is not empty, that it's full. It's full of energy. At the quantum level, it's extremely dense. 10 to the 93 grams per centimeter cube, which is, 30 orders of magnitude larger than, or 39 orders of magnitude larger than if you took all the stars in the universe and put them in a centimeter cube of space. So, the vacuum is extremely dense, it's full, it's not empty, and I came to conclude early on that, although I didn't know that at the time, that the vacuum, that space must be the thing that connects all things, that must be the medium that actually all things emerge from and return to. And from that perspective, I eventually, when I was studying physics, realized that they had found this, that they had found that the vacuum was full, which, from the conclusion I had come to, it had to be. Yes. If all atoms came out of it and returned to it, if it was the connecting medium that connect all things, and since atoms are 99.999999% space, and the rest is a little jiggle of the space, I thought then the space must be infinitely full. And so I was really amazed when I found this. It had been swept under the carpet because at the time it's actually called the vacuum catastrophe, because at the time when they found this, they couldn't imagine such a large number, such a large amount of energy embedded in something that we call zero, the vacuum or nothing. And so it was really important to me to actually bring that out of the closet, bring that out from under the carpet and say, hey, this could be the key to the whole thing. And, I start to write equations and think how the vacuum organizes itself to produce the material world.
Yeah. It's very, very exciting the way you transmit it as well in mathematical form, you know, and the way that you explained in the conference. You said we are all connected, we are all one. You say mathematically as well, and going to demonstrate that. Can you give us a little?
Well, you know, I think that's really important because we hear these concepts for a long time in the spiritual communities. Many masters have said we all one and all this, you know, when you're having a problem with your neighbor, you know, and you call your best friend, you know, they'll tell you, don't worry about it, we're all one, you know, and all this stuff. But it's like, how is it that we're all one? How is it that everything is connected? I mean, those are nice concepts, but if actually you don't know the mechanics on how that's possible, then it's still a dogma. It's still a belief. And so for me, that was really not good enough. And actually it came naturally as I was writing equations. I think it was in 2004, and I was discussing things with Dr. Rauscher, my co-author, a physicist, and you know, we were trying to figure out if the atom, if we looked at the amount of space inside the nuclei of an atom, inside the proton, how much vacuum energy would still be present if there is 10 to the 94 grams per centimeter cube in a centimeter cube. How much of those vibration of vacuum energy are still present in the little teeny nuclei of an atom? And when we did the calculation, it came out, you know, exactly the mass of the universe that we believe the universe is. And to me, that made sense right away, because if the vacuum is the connecting metric that connects all things, then all the information of all protons of all things literally in the universe should be in every one of the proton, and that's exactly what we found. So it was really profound for me, and you know, to find that, because this is like mathematical, you know, evidence, if not proof, but at least an evidence that the universe is one, that everything is entangled, all protons, all atoms are entangled, and that's why the universe can self-organize this, because it knows where everything is, it knows what everything is doing, and it's able to organize all these things in very complex systems like the biology we see today.
The beauty of it all is there is a geometry to it as well. There is symmetry, geometry, and it gives it kind of like a magical touch, because we're seeing that geometry all around us, and in fact in the material side it's manifesting as well as the mathematical or physical side.
Right.
You talk about the geometry of space and singularity. Would you like to touch a little bit on singularity? How can we explain what singularity is?
Okay, well,
in the mid of all this space, you know, we're talking about matter, and you could nearly say matter doesn't matter practically with so much space. It seems so insignificant, but that singularity has so much importance in our significance here as human beings on Earth.
Right. Well, singularity is a big problem in physics. I mean, in general, you know, our equations, I mean, Einstein field equations predicts it, and then there's all sorts of complexity as well in other equations that show that singularity shows up, and you know, it shows up as infinities, meaning it's a point of infinite density, a point of infinite curvature. And so, you know, in general, the approach since these discoveries that come from Einstein field equation, it has been to try to avoid singularity, try to find a way to circumvent it. Actually, string theory in one way is a way, you know, in some cases string theory, you know, kind of wraps a string around singularity, trying to get a finite function out of it. But I think that is the wrong approach. I think that actually infinities are part of the universe. The universe has infinities. It's not just a mathematical problem. It is actually there. There's infinite amount of division possible. There's infinite amount of universal size possible. That we live in a multiverse, a megaverse, and that like you know, you can divide to infinity or you can grow it to infinity. And what's important is to understand the pattern of division, the dynamics of division, and when we look at singularity, I think that what we're looking at, if we wanted to do an analysis of it, mathematical analysis and geometrical analysis, then that's when the fractal structures come in, because in a fractal structure you have infinite amount of division possible. And I think that's where the relationship between the math of fractal structures and singularity needs to come together, and that, you know, needs much more work to be complete, but certainly the work I've done so far is pointing in that direction.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting for the viewers to see how you do that with your diagrams, because it's so easy to understand when you see it, you know, all piecing together in the videos. It's so amazing, and it must be very, very passionate for people to get involved in that, because it all fits in beautifully. I remember watching one of your videos, and when you were discovering the tetrahedrons and you were pushing them together, you know, I could just imagine you going, wow, that's it, you know, finding the solution. You talk about matter is the result of spinning. You give an awful lot of importance to spinning. I totally agree with you there. In fact, we're all spinning, and the universe is spinning, and the planet is spinning, and you were giving us other theories about the Earth moving around the sun, the sun moving around another mother's sun, but the whole time we're all spinning through space at the same time. Very interesting. Would you
and it's because of our scale, because of our size, because of our perspective on the world. We think we don't see so much of the spin. We you know, we notice the sun, you know, rises over here and goes you know, behind the horizon over there, and so that's kind of an indication that there's some spin happening, but it's happening very slow. Most people don't think of it, and you know, and then so on the cosmological level we don't experience it directly, and then we forget that all the atoms were made of, or you know, the electrons are spinning and so on, and actually at the atomic level, I believe that spin to be actually mechanical spin, which is not the standard model of the mechanical structure of the structure of atoms. That, you know, the spin is dealt very strangely at the quantum level, and I attempted to modify that by modifying Einstein equations and then applying that to the atomic level. And the last paper I wrote is the first approximation of this change, to start treating the atom as a mini black hole, as a point of infinite density that has spin, angular momentum, like real mechanical spin, angular momentum. And you know, when you do that, you get a completely different view of the atomic level.
Yes. You spoke very, very clearly about the black holes in your conference, and it was, I think it gave people a whole new view, because when you said we're living in a black hole, so few people in society are aware of that kind of information. I think when we've been working on spiritual, energetic theories, well, we're used to being in the black hole, or going through a black hole, or feeling our black holes, our chakras spinning. But the idea for a person in normal society who's not in touch with those kind of theories, well, we're talking about we're living in a black hole. How can we help people understand what that really means, living in a black hole.
Well,
Is,
I think that I've been saying that for a long time, that we live inside a black hole, and the things that are in it are just smaller black holes that we're on the outside of. And actually recently, another physicist from Indiana University has come up with similar conclusion, wrote a very good paper on it. And I think people are the scientific community started to realize that it's not as straightforward as it appears. And the reason I've been saying that is that if you can divide things to infinity, then everything is a black hole, because everything has singularity at its center. And so basically, and then when I took the mass of the universe that we observe, and I put it in the size of the universe we observe, it obeyed the condition of a black hole, meaning it's too dense for light to escape it.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, too dense. The universe doesn't look very dense. I mean, there's a lot of space out there. But you got to realize that it has to do with the size of the system. So you can think of a light being like a laser light being shined from here. It would be curved a little bit by the gravitational field of the sun, and then another star, and then another star, and another star, and it would come back. It wouldn't. There's too many. There's too much mass for it to actually escape. So it was telling when I found this, when it supported the concepts that I was bringing forward, and I was very interesting. But I think that the current popular concepts of black hole is incomplete. So when I'm saying we live inside a black hole, I like to think of it black hole, WHOLE, instead of
complete.
Yeah, complete, with the whole, meaning it's embedded from infinitely big to infinitely small. It's not just one entity that is bizarre, that's absorbing everything, but it actually absorbs and radiates information in a continuous feedback. So it's a black hole, white hole. The black hole being in the center, the white hole being on the edge. So if that's correct, if we were to get out of our universe and look back at it, it would look like a star. It would have a radiating part. Now we're inside the black hole, so it's black, but we're outside of smaller black holes that we call stars, or that we call galactic centers, or that we call, suns and so on. And according to me, all atoms as well. So we're on the outside of the atom, so we see this point that's emanating energy, electromagnetic fields, magnetic moments, and so on. And it appears solid, and it appears that you can't put your things through other things, but actually it's mostly space with a little boundary of energy that's bouncing off each other.
Yes. That space-time theory is quite interesting, because we have heard of people who are able to surpass those limitations, and they can move through space out of the 3D limitations. They can move from here to there without any obvious momentum in the middle.
Well,
but when you think of people like David Copperfield, they can master space-time and move from one place to another without anybody seeing it happening.
Right.
Very interesting.
I'm not sure which one is trickery.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been reports of masters being able to do this, and and so it's interesting. I mean, definitely, like I was saying in the conference, is that there is a possibility of infinity, from infinitely big to infinitely small, and so movement is not so obvious, meaning that you can't isolate the movement of my hand, for instance, from A to B, and assume that that's everything that's happening, because my hand is not in a closed system, it's in an open system. So as my hand moves from A to B, I have to calculate the rotation of the Earth during that time, and add that speed to my hand, and then the rotation of the Earth around the Sun, and then the Sun around the, in the galaxy, in the cluster, in the cluster, in the supercluster, and so on. And now my hand is moving at, eventually if I keep adding those speeds, my hand will be moving at the speed of light from A to B. So then you start to realize, wait, that's not how it happens. My hand is actually appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing in sequence, and it makes it appear to move, and basically this appearing, disappearing act is actually occurring because the vacuum has all the information and it knows where everything is, and so. My hand informs the vacuum of where it is, and then the vacuum informs it of where it's going, and then back to where it is, and back to where it's going. And it's happening at the speed of light, so like a movie, you don't see the spaces between the frames, you just see continuous motion. So all of a sudden you realize, wow, we're actually warping space-time every billionth of a second in our lives. We're constantly doing this. So it makes sense that a person with a certain level of mastery could actually get their atoms to disappear here and reappear there, and skip all the parts in between.
Could you nearly say that if my hand is here and now it's here, that it's a different my hand?
Right. Your hand is constantly undoing itself and redoing itself. Your body is constantly undoing itself. The whole world the whole universe is constantly undoing itself and redoing itself at different scales. So, for instance, that I was talking at the subatomic particle scale, but you could look at it at the biological scale. And in 7 years, you will have undone yourself and redone yourself, and almost all the cells of your body will be new cells that, weren't there 7 years ago. So, in one way you can see this dynamic happening at different fractal level of the scale.
You can see with your view of physics, you go way beyond what people enjoy in spiritual fields as quantum physics. So, would you say that you would dismiss or those theories, rule out those theories as quantum physics, as you're expanding much beyond the limitations of quantum physics?
Yeah, I think quantum physics is attractive to spiritual people because there's that whole part about the observer and the influence of the observer on the experiment and all this. And so that's attractive to the spiritual people because it gives them a sense that, they may be correct, that consciousness is important in the equation. I think that's all true. I just think that quantum physics is extremely incomplete, and that it's a dangerous thing to start interpreting quantum physics that way. And in fact, the equations I wrote in this last paper, which is quite simple, shows that you can treat the atom almost completely classically or semi-classically with Einstein field equation, and you don't need much quantum physics. Although I think that the uncertainty principle occurred because we're dealing with mini black holes that are connected to all information in the universe. So there's an uncertainty because there's infinite amount of information, present. So it's uncertain exactly where that particle is. It could, there's a percentage of probability that it could be anywhere else in the universe. Or if you pinpoint it down and you can tell where it is, now you're not sure exactly where it's going. I think that still applies to the black hole atom, It's just that not in the context of current quantum theory. And so, I basically kind of got rid of a big chunk of quantum theory that actually I thought was very ad hoc. And this is why Einstein didn't like it. He thought there was some fundamental mechanics at the bottom of the atom, at the base of creation, and he didn't think that, it's good enough to just say it's a bunch of probabilities and you can't visualize atoms because it's nothing like the real world. It's nothing like the real mechanics we see in the universe. And I don't agree with that. The universe is made out of atoms. Most likely it's got fundamental mechanics that we can actually visualize and understand.
Boy, if we had Einstein here today, we could have a great conversation, couldn't we?
Yes, it would be great to have him around. I would definitely appreciate his help.
You have mentioned on a few occasions in the interview about a paper that you released, and in fact you got an award for that paper. And I know that when you have been on the scene in lots of conferences and in physics, and you kept getting kicked out. All of a sudden, you were invited to talk at give a special conference on a paper that you wrote that aroused a lot of interest. And in fact, that when the show was over, you said you were used to people throwing tomatoes at you, so you just wanted to get a quick getaway. But they invited you to stay to the end. What happened?
Well, a long time ago, when I was starting to bring this knowledge to the physics community, the reactions were not always very pretty. I had all sorts of mishaps. And, I think throughout the years, many of the things I predicted early on started to be found out. I predicted we were going to find black holes at the center of all galaxies. I predicted that black holes were there before galaxies. I predicted that sunspots were vortices towards the center of the sun, not just surface events. And many things I said started to come through. And so some of the physicists that at first, were having serious issues with me, started to, be more friendly and all this. And eventually, I got into a group of physicists that are working on these more esoteric and more difficult issues in physics, not just the stuff that's known, but the stuff that we don't understand and that, really needs work. And so eventually I was invited to present a paper at this conference, and as an invited paper I was able to say what I wanted, pretty openly. And so my paper, first of all, my paper was very simple, meaning I made it as simple as I could, which, in some ways, that as well upset some physicists because it doesn't have enough detail. They have to kind of fill up the blanks. But I wanted it simple because I wanted anybody with a little bit of background in math to be able to follow it and not just add complexity. And what it said was that atoms are black holes, that the vacuum has an important role to play in their creation, that the vacuum connects them all, and all this. And so it was pretty radical, and I was a little nervous going to that conference thinking, I don't know what they're going to think about this. I could get a lot of tomatoes thrown at me. And so when the director of the conference pulled me aside and said he wanted to talk to me, I thought, oh, no, I'm going to,
Get over here.
And he asked me to stay for the award presentation because my paper had won the best paper award. I was very happy about that. It was great. It is a small award. It's not a Nobel Prize, and it's in a conference that, is multidisciplinary. The award is for the physics section of the conference. So it was great. I mean, I was really happy about it. And, I think that much more work has to be done on that paper to complete to like fill up the blanks for people. And so it's created some upsetness in the physics community. But I mean, if it wasn't new, if it wasn't unusual, then it would be the same as everybody else. So in one way, the fact that that people are getting upset out there is an encouraging fact. It's showing that maybe there's something valid there, and that changes are difficult. People have to realize it's normal. When you've got 150 years or 120 years of quantum theory in history, one simple paper saying that most of it is incomplete is not gonna. They're not gonna just throw it out and go with my view right away. But I believe that eventually they will. I believe that eventually they will realize atoms are mini black holes. They can be dealt with classically. And the reason they have all this esoteric behaviors like entanglement and, very uncertainties and so on is because we're dealing with black hole dynamics.
It was very exciting for me to listen to your videos these last couple of years, because on my own pathway I had received a lot of information in a spiritual way, and my mind couldn't really deal with it all, because I was told all of this information is very high science, a very elevated science, because in fact spirituality is not what they say in the books. It's a very, very elevated science, high science. And I thought, how can I understand the science of it?
Right. I say that all the time, is that spirituality is the physics we haven't understood yet. And so, I agree. I think that a lot of people having insights into the fundamental structure of the universe and so on, don't necessarily know how to translate it into scientific terms, but a lot of people get the sense that no, this is real physics. It's there. I don't know how to write the equation for it, but I get a really deep sense that this is actually how the world works.
For me, it put absolutely everything into perspective, and I will always be profoundly thankful for that. And I'd like lots of other people in the spiritual world to open up their minds to the science side. Like you said in the conference, we got to get it all together, work it all together and understand that it's all the same thing.
Right.
But we're coming
the scientific world and the spiritual world has to come together.
Yes.
Because the spiritual world is basically our link to the insight of how the universe functions. And the scientific world flushes out the details of those insights so that we can apply it to our world, to our technological advancements, to our philosophical understanding and so on, so that the world can evolve. So the two are very, very, very important. And they've been separated in our society, and they need to come together. And it's a very, very tough job. On the scientific side, I get tomatoes thrown at me because it's, too esoteric and spiritual. And then on the spiritual side, I get tomatoes thrown at me because it's too, scientific, and I get told you'll never be able to write an equation to describe the universe and all this. And I just don't agree. I think that if you can experience it, if you can think it, you can understand it. You can actually, cognitively write the equations, understand the math is there somewhere, it works, it has some kind of fundamental mechanics that you can describe.
You said something very, very interesting, which is God is a tetrahedron. Okay, that's going to set a lot of people back, you know, in their thoughts, going, what? God is a tetrahedron? How can we make something, you know, physical or material out of God? It's like saying God doesn't matter anymore, he's only a tetrahedron, or she is a tetrahedron, you know? Would you like to expand on that a little bit?
Well, I didn't say God is a tetrahedron, I said God seems to be portrayed as a tetrahedron in the writings of the Old Testament. I think, like, you know, if you ask people, what is God for you? I would say most of the time you'll get answer like something that, you know, that's omnipotent, omniscient, you know, it's everywhere, it knows everything, it's organizing, you know, it's the ultimate power. And I think when we look at the vacuum, when we look at the energy that connects all things, this metrical space, this membrane that connects everything together, and that transfers information from every point to every other point, I think we get an analog to the description of God. I mean, it's everywhere. It connects everything. It knows it's almost omniscient, omnipotent, and so I think that you know, it flips the bill, and then all of a sudden realize that God is actually the information of all things present in everything. And really, when you look at all the masters' writings and philosophy and all this, it's very much what they're describing is this amazing fundamental structure of creation in which every point contains the whole.
Yeah, they're holographic effects. So
yes,
if God is like that, we're all God.
That's right.
You know,
we're all part
of God.
Yes, exactly. And you know, we're all part of this amazing will work of nature where nothing can be isolated from it. Everything is part of it, and so every little piece has a very important role to play in informing the rest of the system.
So we can really think that if we move a little finger, we're moving space right out there in the cosmos, in the universes, in the cosmoses, you know. Action, reaction, it's such a tiny little, we talked about the butterfly flapping its wings. You know,
I think that that's an important understanding, and at the same time, it's important to understand that there's dampening. And what I mean by that, first of all, you know, when you say that I'm moving my finger and I'm moving space in the universe, people say it's hard to visualize. But imagine this: if you have let's say a membrane, like you can think of it as a semi-permeable membrane, like the surface of a cell or something. And it's like a sphere, and then inside is the vacuum, and then there's an inner sphere, and then an inner sphere, and an inner sphere, and the vacuum in between is not empty. If it has energy, it's not empty, like a fluid you can think of. You can imagine that any movement of any membrane inside the system is going to move the vacuum, which is going to move the next membrane, which is going to move the vacuum, and then it's going to move the next membrane, and so on, so that there's information transfer from the infinitely small membrane to the infinitely big membrane.
Yeah, the domino effect.
That's right.
Yeah, one's going to push the other. Okay.
And what's important though to remember though is that there is dampening, that there's scale relationships, so that you know, you moving your finger is changing the universe. However, it's a very, 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 very slight change. So that scales matters, meaning, you moving your finger most likely is not going to disturb the surface of the sun, right? The butterfly effect is not complete in the way it's usually described as an analogy. And the analogy is that a butterfly in Africa, and that's what I said in the conference, the typical analogy is a butterfly in Africa could bat its wing and a hurricane could occur in Florida as a result. Well, the probability of that happening are extremely, 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 extremely improbable, right? Minute. So you would need millions and millions of butterflies all batting their wings at the same time, and then maybe the probabilities would go up a little bit. So what I'm saying is that, we all have an effect on the universe, but as an individual, we have more of an effect in our closer environment than in the larger morphogenic field. But when an individual starts to have a stronger effect in their environment, and then other individuals, kind of start batting their wings in concert with that first individual, and that grows, then the effect in the morphogenic field starts to get stronger and stronger and stronger, and that's why people would have to come together. People have to come to the same conclusion, to understand each other, to build their power that way so that they can affect change.
Yeah, we're talking about the collective consciousness. If we want to change the world, we have to change ourselves, and then our impact on those around us will start to change all the others. So
exactly, and then those on others, and eventually, maybe hundreds, thousands, millions of people will have this new insight, and then it becomes very powerful for the rest of the world.
That's why I feel you're a very important piece in this big jigsaw of the awakening of humanity, the impact that you can have on a few people on a lower scale, a smaller scale, and then one person, when he has woken up, is going to automatically affect the others around. So it's great. It's going to really get things moving,
right?
Because we're going to understand better. It's not just a question of faith. Just do it because I say so. It's understand it, and it makes it so much easier. So the impact is going to be faster and stronger and quicker.
That's right.
So we can
because we can actually understand when you say we're all one, how that actually occurs. Or when you say you're creating your reality, how is that true that I'm creating my reality? And that in that part in the conference I was saying, the statement you're creating your reality is only half the equation, because reality is creating you as well. And so there's a feedback so that we have a common reality. Otherwise everybody would create their own reality and nobody would ever meet. So
it's going to be great to reset everybody, and for everybody to be aware of the fact that they're all co-creators.
Right.
And we do that on a collective scale.
That's right.
Then the battle's won, We're going to understand the universe and understand us. And
the technology that comes out of it will probably be extremely powerful.
Then more people will be inspired.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you for your inspiration.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, you talk about the pyramids, and you've studied them a lot, and all that geometry that goes with it, in your view, who built them and why or when?
Wow, those are a lot of questions.
Whoa.
In my view, the pyramids were not built by the Egyptians.
I agree.
If we talking about the pyramids of Giza, the pyramids in South America and in Mexico, some of them may have been built by the local people there, but I think the most of them that are very elaborate were built as well by these other civilization that was very advanced, that all of these ancient civilizations talk about, like the Egyptian, the Mayans, the Incas, the Chinese, they all talk about this other civilization, this very advanced civilization that came to the earth and taught man, engineering and mathematics and writing and all this. None of these ancient civilizations actually take credit for the building of these monuments. So for some reason that's been discarded by the archaeology community, although now finally it's starting to come out. It's clear when you look at the monuments, such as the Pyramid at Giza, that there is level of accuracies there. There is huge engineering problems, engineering problems that we could not solve today with all of our technology, with all of our resources. So it's very unlikely that a bunch of farmers, slaves, even with hundreds of thousands of them, could have all of a sudden, from a civilization that basically lived in caves, that were nomad partly and so on, all of a sudden decided to build these monuments that were just tremendously accurate and tremendously difficult to build. So it just doesn't add up. And there's a lot of evidence to the contrary. There's a lot of evidence to support the fact that there was an advanced civilization on this planet prior to our written history. And I think it's time that that is taken seriously by archaeologists and that they start talking about it. But like many other fields of investigation, it's very difficult to change, something that's been there for a very long time, generations. So it's a little bit of a battle.
Difficult, but not impossible.
That's right. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
The way in other civilizations, they were able to move huge rocks just by a thought. And to transport them by thought, but it's consciousness or moving in a scientific way. I don't know how they would explain that nowadays. But.
Right. I don't know if they were moving them just by thought. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I've seen no evidence of that. What I've seen evidence for, however, in studying some 20 years of ancient civilization, is that there was a very specific, very powerful, technology that was given to man by these advanced civilizations early on in our evolution, and that a whole society and a whole evolution occurred for thousands of years with this technology, and then that it was that there was a cataclysm and that technology was removed because we needed to learn and grow a little more and get a little wiser, but that some of these technologies were left. And that you can actually follow where these technology went. And one of those technology, I believe, was described in the Bible as the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, and in the Quran, it's called the black stone or the black crystal, and it's in the Kaaba, and so on. So.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot we still have to learn there, and very often the humans have tried to communicate with their galactic friends, so to call them, and they're asking, hey, what are we missing, or what do we need to know? And in fact, we're actually getting manifestation in 3D in our fields, showing up the crop circles and the marvelous crop circles that are coming in geometrical forms, which prove your theories. This is where we need to go. This is the direction. What is your view on the crop circles?
Yeah, well, I think that some of the crop circles definitely made by humans stomping around, but that there's a certain percentage of them that certainly don't apply. They have all sorts of strange occurrence that cannot be easily explained by people stomping around.
Yeah.
And in fact, some of these crop circles that are very, very unusual map or point in the direction of this fundamental fractal structure of the vacuum that I've been describing. And I discovered this independently, and then all of a sudden, next thing I knew, all of a sudden these crop circles were occurring in England and I hadn't published my work that replicated what I was discovering at the time. So I thought, wow, that was really amazing, and it was supportive, and it was encouraging. I felt like somebody was saying, "That's right, keep going. You're in the right direction," and that was really important at the time because I had many moments of discouragement. You know, you can imagine in 25 years of study, I was studying day and night for the first 10 years, almost day and night, because I had to catch up to all the physics that had been written and so on. And, you know, and there was moments of discouragement, especially when I would encounter large resistance to where I was going and so on. So these crop circles and then some of the discoveries I did in ancient civilization and so on, every time it was like, wow, you know, you keep going, you're on it, you keep doing it.
That must have been just so amazing for you every time one of these crop circles showed up, you know. I could just imagine you in your caravan, as you said, you know, isolated from society, going, give me more, give me more.
Exactly.
It's, like we say, we're not alone, and when you feel something really, really deep down, you just follow your dream, follow your inspiration, and you always get those little gifts that come saying, you see, you're right, you're on the path.
You're on the path, you're on your dharma.
That's so comforting for you, and to help you to keep
going.
You're there. I think people are going to talk a lot about your work very soon, and you're already getting a very good response. You filled that lovely big auditorium there on Saturday, and and you got your standing ovation, and everything was just like magical. So people are ready to listen to you. So you keep going. Nobody can stop you.
I think that's one of the most powerful things to help me keep going is to see actually people's reaction. People get it. You know, people get it at such a deep level. And it's changing so many lives. I get some, hundreds of email. This was people just so grateful, and it's so touching, and it makes such a big difference. It's so encouraging to see that people getting the information and going, oh my God, and completely changing their perspective on their lives, you know, and in some cases really having a profound effect in their lives. So people that were very discouraged to realize that, wow, I'm really connected, I'm part of this amazing creation, I'm not isolated by myself alone, lost in space. It's all has a purpose. I'm part of this amazing creation, and that really makes my heart sing.
You really touched my heart when at one moment we're talking about a really scientific. You're giving a lecture that is full of numbers and geometry and everything, but I remember you stopped at one specific moment, and your whole vibration changed, and you looked out into the public and you said, well, what's going on here is that we're getting together. We're in this together, you know, this is for the people and by the people for the people. And you had a twinkle in your eye. There was something that moved deep down, and I just burst into tears. Okay, and I just thought, that's it, that's your profound message is we're getting together, there is a way, there is a solution, and this is it. And we're all vibrating in the same desire of finding a way to help humanity survive this, get out of this survival mode that we're in, you know. It doesn't have to be the way it is. And I must confess that I wasn't expecting it, but you did. You really got there deep down, and you moved me, you made me cry. you got in there. Okay.
Well, I think that like when people realize that they're connected, that we're all in together, you know, that like we have this deep family, you know, and all of a sudden it kind of hits them. And all of a sudden you feel, oh, that it feels like home, you know, that's home. And man, it's like, you know, the link has been made, and you know, it's just the heart just rejoices, because there's that feeling of, oh, I can relax, I can breathe, it's okay, we're all in it together, we are family.
I think that's what the humanity is crying out for now, you know, that feeling of home. I want to feel home. Because if we look out there, you know, we see all those solar flares. The planet is in a pretty critical state, you know. So many things could happen, but we're still there. We're still surviving. Something's keeping us together. It's like as if to say, you still got one last chance. You know, we could have been hit out of the universe many times, as you explained. And the sun is really reacting. There's an awful lot of activity there. And one of those solar flares could put us into a microdot in the universe. You know, we could almost not be here. But that's what's keeping us together, these people waking up. You say now, your message is, we've got to go within. Either go within or go without. You go within, and you give very strong emphasis to the importance of meditation. You know, cut out all what's happening out there. Stop looking out there and go within. It's all the information is inside us.
That's right. It's you know, it's a crucial thing.
Yeah.
You know, we spend all our days with our attention outside. You know, sensory, the eyes, the smell, the mouth. I mean, we're eating, we're working on a computer, and like most people don't take 1 minute in their lives, in their whole life, to actually stop and go inward. You know, contemplate within. And because if it's true that everything can be divided to infinity, then infinity is within you. And that's the direction in which you have access to all the information, to all the insights. Where you have access, but beyond the insights, where you have access to your essence, to your fundamental being, the anchor of your existence. And, you know, it's so crucial. And this is why so many masters have come saying, you guys, take the time to go within. And if you take 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, and just, you know, maybe just after you wake up, instead of just running out and rushing and jumping in the shower and doing the whole thing, just taking 5 minutes to like close your eyes, go within, experience your breath, experience your soul, experience your connection to the universe, experience your singularity, then you walk into this world that day from that point of center, from that point of strength, from that connectivity with all of the knowledge. And now you're walking in the world as a master. And we all have that. We all have that mastery. We are all Buddhas, you know. We have that potential inside of us. And every one of these great masters as well, that were real masters, you know, they were masters because they kept on telling people, you are the master, you have this inside of you. You can do it. I mean, even in the Bible, it's still present, you know. You will do greater things than I, you know, and so on. And so this very important part is that the understanding that we have that power.
And the beautiful thing too that I discover when and I teach that to my students. The most simple people, the people who haven't got all those titles, all those diplomas, who've done so much spiritual work, when they discover meditation and they have those magical experiences where they actually cross the nothingness and come out the other side, they have that enormous expansion of consciousness, and they explain it to other students in class, and the way they explain it to you is if they've gone to buy fish in the market.
Right.
In a totally natural, simple way. And they're the simple people. So, like we commented at the beginning, you've got to get out of your mind to be able to get into that space between thoughts.
Right, exactly.
Magical space between thoughts.
Yes.
So what you say is so valid to help people to wake up and take those 5 minutes. I so often find, because I ask the students, 1 meditation a day, 5 minutes minimum, if you want 30 maximum, but find those 5 minutes, and they say, oh, no time to meditate. Okay, you've got time to eat.
Yes.
You've got time to talk a lot after you've had your meal.
Yeah.
And you've time to do so many things, but in 24 hours, 5 minutes is nothing,
Yeah.
but it is everything.
Right.
If you can make it, one day you disconnect your mind and
Yes.
you're there.
Makes a
And
big
you
difference.
want a lot more of that.
Right.
So go within or
Yeah.
go without.
That's
I would
right.
say. So it's
Yes.
tremendously important. So then you become a more aware person. You've got all this awareness, and you're able to co-create your reality on a conscious level.
Yeah, you become more and more conscious of your
Yes.
co-creation capability and what you want to feed the universe. You're feeding information to the structure of the vacuum through your interpretation of the field.
Yes.
And so how you interpret the events of your life is having a very big impact on your future and on your participation in the universal mind.
Yes.
And so that interpretation of the events of your life is up to you. It can be constantly the glass is half empty, or it can be the glass is half full, and or actually the glass is completely full and it's overflowing, and I just wasn't aware that all this was there for me. But if you don't go and tap into that place, you just don't know it's there. You just don't experience it.
What's your project now for humanity? Your project, your labs. What have you got to offer humanity from this present now?
Well, you wouldn't believe how difficult it is to finance, or how difficult it has been to finance, this type of research on this planet, because it's, unusual, and I'm doing it independently and all this. So, part of a lot of the time I'm spending right now is as attempting to find new ways to be able to finance the research. But I think that what we can offer at the Resonance Project is certainly a whole new way to look at the physics of our universe and how they interact with what we call consciousness and spirituality and all this, and actually give it a cohesive, fundamental, mechanical understanding of how it actually works, and then apply that to technology and produce technologies that are beyond what we can even imagine today. Some of the first attempt at producing such technology has already been done, and we got very incredible results. And so we're on the way to releasing some of these results in terms of products that people will be able to get to enhance their capacity to grow and move it through difficult times and so on, and to improve their standard of living, and I mean it in the deepest level.
Yes.
And so I'm excited about that. And then as well, I think some of the work that we're doing, in bringing some of the greatest minds in the world. I already started a multidisciplinary conference called Unify, where we brought physicists and mathematicians and biologists and really and artists and amazing thinkers together in a 2-week period of exploration of how the universe work and everybody's perspective and where these perspectives actually meet.
Yes.
And we came to very, very amazing conclusions, and it was very beneficial for all of us. And we're wanting to do more of these, make them bigger, and continue in that direction. So it's so crucial that the public supports us. We're a nonprofit foundation. We are completely at the limb of the public support in order for us to continue to do the research. So get in touch with the Resonance Project Foundation, get on our email list. We're going to start a membership site as well. Become a member, support us, and help us bring this to the world. There's technologies that can be developed from the application of these new physics and new philosophies that will have huge impact on our evolution.
In just a few words, how would you define your ultimate soul purpose for your job?
Wow, that's a big one.
Going? Yeah. What is your ultimate soul, heartfelt purpose?
I think that my dharma, my work here is to help bridge the spiritual world with the physical world, to show that the spiritual world is not just this whole woo-woo thing, but that actually it has its roots in fundamental mechanics of creation, and that those can be described in mathematics and physics and applied to technology and all this, and that all this put together can bring us to a whole new level of experience of the universe. And that's my dharma. This is what I'm here for. This is what I'm here to do. I've known that since I've been very young, and I'm going at it as hard as I can.
And mathematically, we are all one.
That's right.
And you've said it and you've proved it.
Yes, at least I demonstrate that is most likely a possibility, and that and people know it, they feel it, and when you give them the mechanics of how that's actually true, then the power that becomes available to you, because you know exactly how to experience it and interact with it. Oh my God, I'm so excited about that.
Oh my tetrahedron.
My tetrahedron.
So excited about that.
That's right.
Thank you, Nassim, so much. Heartfelt gratitude, really. Thank you so much for your time and sharing with us.
Thank you.
And
thanks for having me.
We know that we can help you so much, and we're going to invite a lot of people to understand your theories and to collaborate. And we're going to do it.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We do it together.